Good.
Everybody, this is Big Bill. Hold on, I gotta turn down my never do this. I always mess up. Anyway, welcome to Moderating Live. Tonight's show is a continuation. It's actually this is Big Bill. I gotta turn my series is not necessarily. I always mess up. Anyway, welcome to Moderating Live. Tonight's show is a continuation. It's actually this is Big Bill. I always mess up.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Can you hear me, Andy?
Yes, sir, just fine.
Yeah, well, it's
Just fine. Yeah, I get that from somewhere else.
can you hear me, Andy?
Yes, sir, just fine.
Yeah, well, it's
Just fine. Yeah, I get that from somewhere else.
audio is really bad. It's coming
Yes, sir, just fine.
staticky. Jeff Islow, Liz, I said Jeff said the audio is real bad. Okay, how's the audio out there now, Jeff and Will? Can you hear me? Dave Piper, can you hear me pretty good? Are we still echoing? Okay, how's the audio out there now, Jeff and Will? Better? Much better, Dave Piper says. Okay, good. Piper, can you hear me pretty good? Okay, William A gives a double dub up. Jeff says, okay, sounds good, Bill. Yes, it's much better. Okay, how's the audio out there now, Jeff and Will? It seems like we're getting feedback, Andy. Every time I'm talking, I'm hearing a 30-second delay on your end. We speak. Okay, yes, my gives a double dub up. Jeff says, okay, sounds good, Bill. Yes, it's much better. Okay, how's the audio out there now, Jeff and Will? You should ask my question. Seems like we're getting feedback, Andy. Every time I'm talking, I'm hearing a 30-second delay on your end. We speak. Okay, yes, my gives a double dub up. Jeff says, okay, sounds good, Bill. Yes, it's much better. Okay, how's the audio out there now, Jeff and Will? You should ask my question. Seems like we're getting feedback, Andy. Every time I'm talking, I'm hearing a 30-second delay on your end. Yeah, audio is out of sync. All right, now I don't hear the feedback. Dave Piper says still have like a 10-second echo. No, it doesn't seem to be doing that. Can you guys hear me out there? How am I sounding? I don't want to get dead air here. How am I sounding? Do I sound all right? All right, now I don't hear the feedback. Can you guys hear me? William A? Yes, Ralph says yes, he can hear me. And so anyway, I think it has to, yeah, good. Ralph Renzetti says good. I think it has to do on your end when you turned your mic off. Something's turned on your end. So anyway, here we go, rocking and rolling. All right, now I don't hear the feedback. It's 9:08 p.m. It's February 19th, 2020, and this is Model Railroading Live. And so we're doing a continuation of a series of bigger is not necessarily better. And basically, this is the, I believe, the fourth installment and the last installment. And this is with me and Johnny on it, just recapping what we went over. The actual premise or genesis of this series started with the conversation with Andy, myself, and John, and Ralph was part of that, and talking about building a layout. and starting with the layout and how sometimes it gets a little bit overwhelming for people to they want the bigger the better, the monster railroad, because they see railroads like Ralph, they see railroads like mine, and and other guys out there that are doing their modeling, and they have an established layout, or there's new guys out there that are doing such as like Sparky just recently built the shed, and Ray Bell, is doing a lot on his layout, and he just relocated to a new house. And then there's the basics of it was everybody wanted to be a part of. Everybody wants to get out of the 4x8 and do something bigger and better. And then what happens is they hit that wall. They start building it. They realize, wow, did I bite off too much? You know, did I bite off too much that I can chew? Did I overcompensate the expense, the whole thing? And they revert going back to doing something other than building the layout that they wanted. So with that in this series, we started with that in the beginning, and then we had Bill Baronic on, the track planner, aka the track planner, and uh, he discussed track planning. He discussed what the criteria for building a layout, the things that you should put in motion prior to putting pen to paper to draw out or go on the computer to get your layout started. You should think through the situation, think through what it is that you truly want and what you're allowed to do. And what meaning from that was, some of us want to put 10 pounds of railroad into a 1 pound bag. And sometimes it doesn't work that way. That I've said it from the beginning of the series, and it's that 8-year-old in us that wants what we want when we want it, and we want it right now. And the reason why is because we're older, we make money, we have some limited amount of finance, and we can do what we want. Some of us who are retired have a discretionary fund that we have on the side. Some of us work overtime, whatever it is, in order to accomplish that. And again, it comes back to planning. It comes down to, what do I want? It's an emotional decision. We know that. And something I said. I've never had anybody walk out on me before. You guys probably do it all the time, but I can't see you. That was so cool. Anyway, oh yeah, we had Bill Baronic on. And, excuse me, gentlemen. Was on, aka the track planner. He talked about that. Then the next show we had Joe Fugate, editor and publisher of Model Railroad Hobbyist, and also the big guy in charge of Trainmaster TV. And and he was talking about the Toma system, building a module type situation where it's portable, and it's something that you can do and you can start off with and have fun with, and it kind of introduces you into doing your layout. And we've had some on the Who's Big Bill Talking To. We had Freddie. Hey Fred. Fred's in the room here. Fred has a 4x8 sheet of 4x8 railroad that he's doing, and he's got a lot of railroad. If you guys go check out, it's Fred E. That's his YouTube channel. If you go out there, check him out on his YouTube channel. Also, William A., another gentleman that we're going to have on next week on Who's Big Bill Talking To. He has 2 4x8 layouts, and a lot of railroad in that too. A lot of organization and a lot of running and a lot of operation. Whether you're into operating, oh, here he is. Whether you're into operating or just wanting rail fanning, basically letting your runs run in a continuous loop, that's fine. That's great. Whatever you want to do. The whole thing here is basically what we wanted to accomplish here is just to think about it prior to putting pen to paper and trying not to get discouraged, to get overwhelmed uh, by the magnitude of what you want. And sometimes you have to, learn to not get what you want. As we said earlier in this video, it's like, get, hey, there's Mr. Hal. Miles, how are you, sir?
Not bad. How you doing?
Good. We were just talking in regards to the finishing up of this series on bigger is not necessarily better, and just recapping what we've done in the last three episodes that we had. And this is the final episode, and just recapping of having Mr. Baronic, aka the track planner, on. Bill Fugate was on uh, the, the last show we had and talking about the Toma system, and you were part of that Toma system. You did some videos on the Trainmaster TV. Uh,
Yes, we built the layout that he had at the conventions, the Toma Railroad.
right, and I was just going on about how it's worthwhile to get your feet wet in with the Toma system because it's an introduction and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Uh, you know, to a railroad, and then from there you can build upon the Toma and the module system and just make life a lot easier for yourself until you kind of get your feet grounded into what it is that you really want to do and how you do it, how you want to accomplish something. Again, this is not us telling you how to build a layout. This is not us telling you you shouldn't or how big your layout is. All we've come to the conclusion and I have to say it's a personal journey of mine because when I started this layout that you see behind me, the South Brooklyn layout, uh, it was something that I had always wanted, and I'm kind of like going over this and reiterating it. It's something I always wanted, and when I had the opportunity and I had the availability of the space, I remember jumping into this and telling Bill, "Hey, this is what I want. This is what I want to do, and I want to build this, and I want to build that." And it was funny because during the whole process, the things that I wanted, I wanted the New York City landscape harbor thing, and Bill was like saying, "Well, okay, this is the only amount of room uh, that we have to work with." And I kept insisting that, no, no, this is what I want. I want to put a harbor scene in, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And Bill kept steering me down this road of like, okay, this is what we can do with the room that you have. And even after it was up, and I said this before when I had it up and I had the skeleton of it done, it was I became overwhelmed by it and just like, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? Because then I started thinking about the maintenance, then I started thinking about the upkeep of it, the electronics of it, this, that, everything. And then it really truly became overwhelming. And I always think about that, and I think, and I enjoy my layout now more now than I did before. Because why? Because I came to a realization that, I can, like, when the warm weather, when we get into April and May, June, actually, the end of May, like, I walk away from this. This gets shut down.
Well, it's really nice that you have about 14 people that come over there every week to help you build, so you can take that kind of time away.
I don't think I know 14. I think I just know. I don't think I can get 14 people in the same room that know me. And if I did, they'd all be looking to turn the lights out and beat the living daylights out of me.
Oh man.
Well, that's the problem. We get all this inspiration from the magazines about these massive, massive layouts that are club projects or large group projects. And even if it's just building the thing, you need and you have that crew or whatever. You've also got to take into account, like you're saying, Bill, is that these layouts develop a life, and they're going to require maintenance, and they're going to require work, and you're going to replace turnouts, and you're going to re-gear locomotives, and it's an undertaking. And I think that this concept, I mean, one thing I'm amazed by is how Toma has progressed so quickly. I seen it in 2015. I couldn't have put the date on it until we had talked to Joe last week, or a couple weeks ago. But 2015, the initial concept was a square box with a surface, with a layout on the surface. And now the concepts he's got, for what I seen at the NMRA convention national a couple years ago, of these C channels that include the backdrop and the valance. That concept, it's just a philosophical concept, but that philosophy has matured surprisingly, and it's not necessarily new, as he said, or necessarily even that unique. But so many people, and the thing that I think I would say about it is that if you're building a layout, it should be in your list of considerations. Whether you choose to do it or not, it should be a consideration that you do a pro and con on, or that you sit in the lazy boy and think about for 20 minutes, or, between TV shows, or it's something that you should consider. And there's a lot of people that are trying to encourage little things like this. Like Walters has a contest going on that I just found out about earlier today. Anyway, this little contest for youth modelers or for 15 and up age groups, where you can buy like $100 for a pack of kits, or a couple $100 for a team, and build this 2 foot by 2 foot or 2 foot by 4 foot module. So a lot of people are trying to get people out of the armchair and modeling, and a 2x4 module is likely to get people out of the chair and doing some work, much more than a basement filling empire that feels like a task.
Well, yeah, I think also. Oh, go ahead, Miles. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I think also, having been there, I've actually walked down that road, because the first layout I had was, I think, 16 by 30 or something like that. And then when I went to Louisville, I had to have a little bit bigger. So I had, I don't know, it was 22 by 35 or something. And I had 14 guys that came over and helped me build that railroad. And it became a situation where I didn't work on my railroad. I was the teacher. I was the logistics manager. I would make sure that, there were always snacks or something around. I made sure the supplies were there. It didn't become an extension of me. I mean, if we're in this hobby to be creative and to give our creative spirit some place to exist and to come out, those railroads didn't do it. They've got to be just monsters. And TOMA would limit you automatically, because you're starting off with this smaller entity, and then you only expand out to what you feel like you can kind of get along with. And you're perfectly right, Bill, because it also gets to the point to where it's a monster to manage from maintenance, because engines give problems, cars give problems, track gives problems, electric problems, and you're taking care of all that, and you're not really building. You're just trying to maintain this monster that you created. So from the get-go, when I started decades ago, it was always a matter of, the saying was, I want just a little more trackage rights, a little more trackage rights. And you get this mentality that you want more.
Right.
But when you get it, all of a sudden you're saying, wait a minute, what do I do with it?
Exactly right. Perfect. I just want to welcome Ray Bell is in here, and apparently Ray, if you're still around, one question I have from Ralph Franzetti. Ralph says, "Why do you walk away, Bill?" Excuse me. I believe you're talking about in the summertime. Well, the summertime, it's nice to be out. That's why I do that, and I have, believe it or not, I actually have a life other than model railroading. I am involved in a lot of other. Yeah, I know. Everybody,
Who knew?
Who knew? I do a lot of things with my church, and I'm very active there, and stuff like that. So that's the reason why. And that was a conscious decision, Ralph. I used to think that I had to be here every day. 65. I had to make an appearance. I came to realize that I don't have to do that. This is a relaxation. This is something to get away from. This is something for me to get lost in. If I want to run a train, if I want to do a little operations, if I want to invite one of the friends over that I got, one of those guys that I pay to be my friend, and he comes over and we lay out, and boom, there you go. Hello, everybody.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. So, I don't have to spend a lot of time here. And in the summer, especially, it's just way too nice out to, and did I forget to mention that I live in the greatest city in the world, New York? So, there's a lot to be given. I mean, we don't have Yellowstone Park, but we do have Central Park and concerts and stuff. Anyway, where was I? Oh, getting back to Rainbow Bell. Rainbow Bell. It seems that this series had made an impact on Rainbow Bell because Rainbow Bell, Ray just moved into a new house and he took his own layout and he brought it over there, and he reassembled it and put in that, and he kind of got a little overwhelmed, and he made mention of us on his last video vlog, and I greatly appreciate that, Ray. And in any shape, form, or way, when we brought you up in the conversation, it wasn't a criticism in a sense that, hey, you're doing this all wrong. It was just that, you were and if I'm wrong, you can correct me. Uh, we weren't trying to criticize you and say, oh, this is how not to do it. Go look at Ray's video, and this is how you shouldn't do it. That wasn't our implication or implied method. It was just look at Ray. Ray, you were a perfect example. You were having a lot of problems. You wanted your railroad to be up and running. You wanted to have fun right away, and it was like trying to get the cart before the horse, but not really. It wasn't working out. So you kind of like had to like slow down a little bit, I believe, right? You kind of like had to stop a little bit, kind of reassess the situation, and go back and fix those pesky little things that were bothering you. And that was the same thing here. I did the same thing you did, Ray. Veronica said to me, "Your layout was the fastest layout I've ever seen built and seen it." Most guys will build their layout, lay their track, and just have a prairie plywood running. You went all hog out. You just went, as soon as you finished, you went started scenic section by section, and I paid the price for that, Ray. Just like you did, in that. And I've learned from that because when I came to the peninsula and I came to the putting the two tracks down, I messed up royally, and I had to go back and literally tear it all out and start from scratch again. And then even that, after that was done, I wasn't happy with it, and I got on the phone with him and said, "Please, can I get a redesign on my peninsula and do this and that?" And we did, and it turned out to be much better because now I'm not so enthralled with the maintenance. I mean, I have maintenance. Don't get me wrong, but it's not my do all be all. You know.
But it's not that even the size changed in your case. That's what I think is so interesting about the modification you did to your layout. It's a complexity shift, which I made on my own layout as well. And I had this big dream for 3 or 4 decks. I had designed for 4 decks, and I have no intention of building that much of this layout now. I've reduced the scope of the layout. The size is the same as it is in your case, but they get a bit overwhelming at a certain size and at a certain complexity.
Yeah, true. It says here, Rainbow Bell said, Ray says, that's why I've made so much progress on mine. Too cold outside, yes. Ralph Francetti says, but you don't have to be outside all the time. No, I don't, Ralph, but I choose to be outside all the time because I like going to the Mets game and I like going to the Brooklyn, what is that? Other team in Brooklyn. I love going to Coney Island, because they got Nathan's hot dogs up there. Let's see. Adrian Gaston says nighttime can be railroad time, late nights in the summer. Yes, absolutely. I agree. You know, absolutely. Jonathan King Gas. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Jonathan. I've never built a layout. Okay, well, you've come to the right place. Dwight of Northern Star Railroad. Don't see Johnny's icon. Is he okay? Yes, John is right now having John's dealing with personal issues right now, illness in his family, and John couldn't make it tonight because he's taking care of that, and we're wishing him all the best and keep him and his mom in prayer, if you will. If you're praying people, please do that.
And,
Ralph
and
Lanzetti says, during the summer, I do an hour a day or a half hour a day. It's called time management. And he put an exclamation mark after that. Yes, you're absolutely right, Ralph. Your choice. I choose not to do that. I choose to, you know, stay out and just
well, there's
that's
different approaches to this thing. Whatever gets it done, as long as you're moving ahead. A lot of the guys who own large layouts, especially those that build them themselves, say that no matter what, they put 15 minutes to an hour a day every day into the layout. That is more like a job. That is good for time management if you're trying to be productive. And I did that for quite a few years, and I'd say I'm more in Bill's shape now. When I feel like it, I put quite a bit of effort into it, and when I don't feel like it, I do not stress about not having put any work forward. But for the first 3 years, I was everyday modeler.
yeah, yeah. 107 says, but some people like to have trains running helps with the rest of the build, I think. I think you're absolutely right, Sparking. I think that people do like, I love having trains run. I love having my train slowly cross the Gowanus Canal on the bridges. Yeah, I do. There's nothing wrong with running trains. I hear you loud and clear. I think that would happen. Oh, and Ray says, and by the way, no offense taken. Well, thank you, Ray. Greatly appreciate that. And I'm glad that you were able, that you're transparent enough. I have to say this, Ray. You're transparent enough to put your stuff out there, whether it's a mistake and whether it's working good. That absolutely is. That's the ordinary guy. That's the regular guy. That's the catastrophe railroad guy because you're willing to put it out there for people to see, and people see that. I always get amazed when I see guys like you do things, and I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm not the only one that has to push the train with my finger, and I got problems with my switch. So thanks for being, that transparent. Let's see. Sparky says, "Wow, Ralph, I must have lost track of time building my Helix. I was out 7 hours on Saturday running trains, building more trains, and more build, running more trains. God bless you, man, for doing that. That's great. You just get in the groove. You're right. You're right. And I hope I hope that this is that we did. I don't know if it's everything we wanted to accomplish. And like I said earlier, and Andy, you chime in on this. It was never our it was never our position to tell you how to build a layout or how not to build a layout or how to run a train or why you should run the train or specifically just like, you know, basically keep it simple, and just think before you jump into the deep end of the pool.
Well, that says something about our channel structure in general. We are a group of people with a plethora of ideas that don't always agree with each other, and some of the best content we have is some of us arguing with each other. We do not have a single position at all because model railroaders don't. Whatever works for you, and all we're ever presenting on this show, much like any of our other shows, is either this is how I did it, this is what works for me, this is something you should consider and think about, but there is no, as we've all said before in various ways, there's no right necessarily or wrong necessarily way to be a model railroader. There are some right methods, but there's multiple, and there are possibly some wrong methods, and there's a lot of those too. But it's just Toma and the concept of even if you don't build actual modules, but thinking about your layout as individual components that you have to give attention to and focus to, whether they're structurally separate or not, is a philosophical concept that you may want to apply or not. Um, you see it by a lot of the very serious planners and modelers. I was talking to Bill before the show tonight, Lance Midheim. well known as a famous track planner of the caliber and likes, of course, Bill Moronic in that group as well, our track planner, and the late John Armstrong. There's these few people who are particularly good at layout design, and they're all somewhat different and have different concepts. And in my opinion, I've looked at a lot of track plans as an engineer. I love that stuff. And I can just about always tell a John Armstrong playing. Maybe not always, but real close. I can tell Baronic's track plans, and I can see Midheim's track plans a lot. Lance Midheim talks a tremendous amount about scene composition. Not so much
Yeah,
about all these nuances of track plans and all that other, is he worries about one scene at a time and the composition of how things angle through the scene and track and all that, and building a layout in small sections, whether they're physically separate or not, even if you just think about it in sections like you have with your peninsula, gives you the ability to think about that scene composition and making a scene that will appear appealing. That may not, it doesn't matter what the track plan is, how cool it looks on a piece of paper as an engineering proof. It's what it looks like when you're standing in the room enjoying your efforts or the fruits of your efforts.
just I cleaned off most of this stuff. I just let me everybody take their Dramamine because I'm going to show you the peninsula. This is the Rideau Peninsula. If most of you know from previous videos, there used to be a view block right here, right there, all the way down. Very, very complicated yard right here. Now, where that, right at the end there, in the beginning where it comes out of the clouds, that's the main line, and it goes in, and this is a stubborn yard. Goes to the end, and those are the buildings, and this is how it ends. It's a little bit short on the width side, but it's not, as you can see, it's a stubborn yard, and industry buildings are on the side there, and there's going to be another industry building right here that I'm presently building as we speak, and the O'Shea's junkyard is at the end. It's a lot more simpler. It's a lot more or less complicated than the previous one, and it's one that I'm happy with. One that I really thoroughly enjoy running trains on. And as you can see, it's not scenic. They have the buildings up, and as you can see, the Kent floor sign is finished and done. You can see it. Much kudos goes to Miles Howell for this. That's another series that we'll be doing shortly. Regards to signage and making signs and doing signs. So stay tuned for that, because
That's a beautiful sign, dude.
that is a beautiful sign. To the guy who helped me build it. A lot smarter than me, I'll tell you that.
That's a spectacular engineering effort. Regardless of it being shrunk in size versus the prototype or whatever, the engineering effort of that, and I got, to glance at it a couple times through the process, that's an amazing engineering uh, effort. And I think a show talking about that's going to be really interesting.
Well, we're going to do a thing on this, signs and this build and how we built it. And he built some too for his layout, the bottoms and stuff like that. So
And I know structurally your layout only changed so much. I mean, you basically could say you took a backdrop out, maybe narrowed a peninsula. I mean, like big concept wise, again, if you're just looking at one plan on paper versus another plan on paper, the changes are not that significant. But when you look around that room, it feels like a massive change.
it does, because with the view block out of the way, now I can see across the room. So anybody who's over there, I have a conversation with, I can get into the conversation. And talk, and we could communicate back and forth, and have a good time. John says, just call me John. Okay. In Japan, I don't have the room for a layout, and scale maybe, but I'm not electrically or carpentry skilled. But I love the artistry of model railroading. I hear you, Jonathan. And trust me on this. I'm not a carpenter either. Far from. I had someone help me build this, so I don't take credit for it. But watch enough videos, YouTube can teach you everything. I fixed my roll by watching YouTube videos. So,
Well, it's just about getting
John,
your hands dirty too. Getting started with a little something. Build a 1 foot by 1 foot, or I guess they have the metric system over there. Build, whatever that is in metric. Build a little
yeah,
square. Get you a little square of
whatever.
styrofoam. Get your hands dirty. It'll get you excited.
John 2618 says, cool thing about YouTube is you can see so many ways to enjoy the same hobby. Absolutely. Brad Anderson, model railroading down under. Good day, all. Good day to you, Brad. Good day, or it's good evening here in the States. Rainbow Bell, we are all different with different plans. However, we help each other out. That's the big thing. Now, he put that in capital letters and 4 exclamation marks, so I really should say that with gusto. And to help each other out. That's the big thing. Marty, 1107, I get distracted. RCHO vehicles now. Another rabbit warren to run down.
Yeah, that's like multiple hobbies, and that's the thing that makes model railroading so interesting to me, especially, is it's a lot of hobbies wrapped into one, and how you enjoy your hobby is an entirely unique experience to everybody else.
Kyle Stevens says that's what I'm doing, building a modular layout. I've got all my sections built now. I just need the legs, scenery, track, wiring, and build up my chassis collection. You are naked. Force says, Bill, you need to light that sign. It is so worthy of the added attention it would take. I love that sign. Trust me, you are naked for that was disgust. And it was disgust, I will tell you that. Kyle Stevens, I only have one chassis covered hopper, my BLI brass hybrid 614 and a key brass 614. Uh, yeah, anyway, but that's the extent of what we've tried to do here on the old Model Railroading Live, the number one, what is it? The number one modeling railroad show in the world?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who's to argue?
I look around.
Just ask us.
That's right.
Wait, I look around and I see no one.
Yeah.
So, you know, Jonathan says, just something I noticed and worried about with model railroading. It seems to me everyone's always building and never finishing, then enjoying what they've built, or rather never near completion, get a new one.
Yeah.
You're right, Jonathan. I've actually witnessed people build what they say they build completed, then tear down a layout, and then build another layout.
Well, if you haven't built and you like to build structures, what do?
Build structures.
Especially if you're a layout builder. You see that a lot with people who've built spectacularly. Lex Parker, I think you interviewed him last year, Bill. He built one of the most beautiful layouts. His new layout, well, I say new, it's his layout of the last 15 years, is even more spectacular. But his first layout, or the previous layout, was gorgeous. But he said he was done with the layout, and he's a layout builder. So there's nothing left to do. So he gave a few sections away, tore down a lot of it, started over. I think of that much the same way. I think of my layout. That's part of the joy of TOMA or building a movable layout, is that I can grow it, expand it, replace individual sections. It gives me the flexibility to where I don't have to tear it all out. And to comment to Sparky's point about people enjoying running trains, one of the benefits of building a module is as soon as you get a module or two done, you're now running trains. And everything you do from that point on is an additive thing. It's not destructive to your ability to run trains. And if you have built modules and you decide you don't like that one, you can build a replacement, pull one out, drop the other in, and run trains 20 minutes later.
Yeah. Ralph Renzetti says in response to Jonathan, he says, I finished my weathering, but it does get in the way of working on my layout. Again, the series was not, it is not meant to infer, and I keep going over this, I guess it's a disclaimer of what not to do, how to do it, why you should do it. just basically is, realize the pitfalls. And I guess in a sense, I'm kind of answering my own question because of my own experience. I guess everyone has to go through what they have to go through. You can't control everything and do, but I'd rather see guys have a lot of fun, and gals have a lot of fun out there and enjoy their hobby and share their hobby and absolutely share their mistakes as well, and their, what they couldn't accomplish or what they had dreamed of doing and couldn't get it done. And that I enjoyed more sometimes. And a chance. Big Al is now building his layout, and it's a tremendous layout. So you guys should stop Al channel. And Al back. He put up a section board and he says, "I'm back, boys. I'm back." So, but, it's just something we wanted to put out there, and you know, and just give you guys a heads up. I mean, again, we can't control what you do or don't do, and we're not here to do that. We're just trying to give you some inside tips, on how to, you know, just look into it more, plan more, be a little bit more attentive more, be a little bit more, you know, hey, let me think through this instead of rushing in. The modular system, the Toma system's a good start, and stuff like that. And we think that, I personally think that all you guys out there that do what you do a great job of it. And, you know, see here what it says here. Let's see, Kyle Stevens says to you on Naked, well, that's because most people want to build a layout based on, okay, railroads, BNSF, UP, or any model. Not many folks, especially young folks like myself, like, or let alone know about fallen flags. And that's, Kyle, that's so true. I don't know how old you are or your age group is, but one of the best things about me being involved in the South Brooklyn Railroad, that the South Brooklyn Railroad was based on the uh, Sunset Park area where they would do harbor freight, Bush Terminal, Brooklyn, and each of us have something, and that's the best thing about doing the layout. You do the research. I remember when I was building this layout and I wanted to build it, I actually went down to Bush Terminal on Third Avenue in Brooklyn. And I actually walked the tracks where they were, and I actually walked to the buildings to get that real sense of. And the best part is doing the research for it, you know. And I think that makes your layout come alive. You don't have to do like I can't do the whole Brooklyn waterfront, as much as I'd like to. I can't do the Bush Terminal build. I can do a section of it. I can compress it and do a section of it. 107 says, I love the scenery side of the layout and putting my imagination to work. Is a layout ever done? You can always change or tweak something. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think of them as evolution. My layout is an evolving thing. I don't ever intend to complete it. I don't ever think it will be complete. It's evolving to closer to completion as time goes on. I do want to hit some milestones. That'd be good for my own gratification, but don't worry about getting it done. I will say I'm guilty of that multi-project stuff though, but I think most of us are.
Yeah. Jonathan says, I think maybe something that I could be introduced to static layouts could be a role play or scenario play. That's true.
Well, that's operations. That's the concept of operations too. It's a role-playing game. It's
right. Again, if anybody's ever, I'm not promoting myself. I really am not. And if you go back, I have a storyline with this whole layout. I can make up a story about the O'Shea's junkyard and everything. And that's the whole thing. That's the thing. You have a story behind it. When people come to my layout and I explain to them about, I'll give you a perfect example. Canavelli's Pasta Company, right? They make Canavelli pasta. My wife's maiden name is Canavelli. she makes her own pasta. So I designed my layout, first layout based on the Cannavelli Pasta Factory. The OK Junkyard was my grandfather. He never owned a junkyard. He was a longshoreman. The Dean Street Lumber Company is the block I lived on when I was a kid. Dean Street Power Plant is where my grandparents lived. Brady's Construction Company is the guy that helped me build this place, build the layout. Here we got Glass Yard, Derek Glass. This is named after Derek Glass because Derek helped me with a few items in the beginning. He donated to me, so I named this yard after him. The Perez Cement Factory is named after my pastor Edwin and his family. So it all has a personal meaning to me, and each one has a story that goes with it. Each one has a story that goes with it. So that's what makes it fun, Jonathan, and the research of it. Let's see. Sparky 107 says the experienced modeler, primed, always says slow down, take your time, test. The newer modeler just wants it done. Run trains and let's go. We all learn from what we mess up on. Absolutely. You're absolutely correct.
Choose your own compromise. That's what I've said before. Is model railroading is like one of those choose your own adventure books that we had many years ago. It's a choose your own compromise. You're gonna have, what is that? Fast, good, and cheap. Pick two of those, and you might get that. You're not gonna have all three. So make your compromise. Do you want it fast and cheap? That's possible.
Yeah, Andrew Gaston says people need to learn about older lines that are really cool and have a lot of difference. The research can be fun. I will tell you this: in researching, I live here in Staten Island, New York, and in Staten Island, New York, the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad ran up here. In fact, there was a gentleman who lived on my block. He has since passed away. He was a yard dispatcher, a yard master for the B&O Railroad here in Staten Island. And in researching the B&O Railroad, I came to find out from former yard master that a lot of these guys that worked over the road, and I'm sure that Miles can attest because he worked on the railroad, these engineers, and they would have families up here in New York, and they'd have families in Maryland. Down where they finished, they'd have two families. That was an interesting take, I thought. And he would always tell me that. He would say, "Oh, this guy, he's got a family, lives in Staten Island, he's got a house, and he's got a family down in Maryland." And I was like, "Really?" He says, "Yeah."
We've always talked about, or we've talked recently anyway, about the fact that real railroaders have nicknames. And Bill has one. I had one when I was on the railroad. Well, we had an engineer, and his name was Hacksaw. Because he would cut anything. This is the famous Hacksaw.
Hacksaw.
Yeah. So I don't want your parents to have to explain too much if we have somebody younger watching, but
Yeah.
take it for a grain of salt. He traveled all over, and That's
travel. Let's see. Learn about old lines. Sparky 107 or watch YouTube model railroading live, and some learn from watching first, doing things second. This is true. Or sometimes doing them and then saying, "Hey, you know what I love about YouTube and the model railroading channels is that you do something." And I'm sure you guys out there have done this once in your life. You do something, and then you see something on a channel of somebody that you respect, and they're doing the same thing you're doing. I mean, they're not gloating that they discovered the wheel, but you say to yourself, "Oh, what he's doing, I just did that. That's so cool. I must know a lot."
Never discount coincidence either, but not to shoot you down.
Yeah.
Or the funny thing is when you go watch these guys who do such a spectacular job doing something, and you try it 11 times, and you waste your time and money, and then you go do it the way some other guy did it that's just different, not harder or less hard, and it works great for you. So don't discount. You can learn a lot. We're all, of course, obviously believers in technology and YouTube as a learning exercise, but don't discount the value of a little experimentation. I think it's still required.
Well,
Yes.
Bill will reiterate this, I think, because he took our classes when we were doing one up at Amherst. And my thing to the students always was I always had several instructors there. And I did that on purpose because my hands are different than Bill's hands, are different than Andy's hands.
Yeah.
I work differently, I think differently, but I have to give you several different ideas so that Fred, who's watching the show or who's in class, takes all of those and puts them together and makes a technique that works for Fred. Because the only thing is important is that Fred succeeds. I've already done it. Bill's already done it. Andy, you've already done it. It's not important whether you do it exactly the way I did it. It's important that you do it in a way that you can succeed.
That is true. That is so true.
You know, so the more ideas you can take in, the better the results you can make for yourself on the way out.
That's absolutely correct. I think that sometimes that I've noticed is we sometimes get hung up on the, again, YouTube is a great, before YouTube came into effect, how long has it been now? 20, 25 years?
Maybe.
YouTube is about 14 years old, give or take. And when I tell people I work in technology space, we're about 30 years into the mainstream adoption of technology, and YouTube was very early for even being able to do what was possible 14 years ago.
Well, the point is that most model railroaders, I know that when I started in late 78, 79, 80, DCC was in Model Railroad magazine, it was coming. It wasn't yet. 78, 79. Model Railroad magazine did an article and they had ads in their paper about DCC is coming. DCC is coming. And you only got to talk to the model railroaders if you were in a model railroading club. That's how you interacted with other model railroaders. And what I came to find out in the early part of my model railroading, life, was when I would visit other model railroads in the city, I noticed how very, what's the word, clannish.
Oh, very much.
They were very clannish. Like they'd have open,
Clickish, etc. Yeah.
yeah, they'd have open, like they'd want you to come in and they'd hand you a membership thing. But it was like when they handed you the membership back in the early 80s, late 70s, they'd hold on to the paper. They wouldn't let it go. And you're like, well, do you want me to join or you don't want me to join? And they'd be like, yeah. But they'd always be afraid that you were going to take their spot, Yeah. It's like that in any organization. It's like that when you do youth baseball. It's like that. It's like that when you go to church, synagogue, temple, whatever it is that you adhere to. People, you gotta kind of, but that's how it used to be, and you could never really break into it and, get around it. But now with the advent of social media, and look what we're doing here. You're in Missouri. You're in Kentucky.
Yep, this week.
I'm in New York. We're talking to people from Australia. We're talking to people from Canada. Our world has gotten smaller.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot.
So we've come a long way from when we used to be. And that's the beauty of this, is that we're getting out of the basement. We're actually opening the door and letting sunlight in. Like, wait a minute. There's actual people out there. There's actual other people I can talk to.
Well, you can never forget that our hobby is a creative medium. And it doesn't make any difference what medium you choose or what avenue of this medium you choose to go in. You can be a photographer of models, a photographer of prototypes. You can be a structure builder. You can be an electronics expert. You can be a track laying expert. You can be all this kind of stuff. But you can never forget that if it's a creative medium, there's one thing that's always involved across the board, and that's ego.
Huh.
And, managing the egos becomes sometimes a little bit of a problem, because as soon as I succeed and I really got this down, there are a lot of people, and I try not to be one of these, but this way works. You need to do it my way. And it goes totally against what I just said that, I don't care. And I really don't that you do it my way. I want it to be your way. I want you to succeed. But there
Right.
are a lot of people out there who say, no, 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 this is the way to do it my way. And if we succeed with Model Railroading Live, it will be the fact that a bunch of us up here doing the show don't bring our egos to the screen.
or as
You
little as
can't,
possible.
you can't do it and promote the hobby and make the hobby grow and make individuals grow in their own creative endeavors.
Yeah.
You got to put that aside and say, hey, I'm going to present ideas. You take them. You do the best you can to make yourself the best you can be. And if I had a hand in it, man, I'm proud that I was there to help you out. But I'm not there to force you to do it exactly my way.
And the hobby's
Right.
better off. And the hobby's better off for you being in it is the concept that I like to portray. And you get a lot of these people that we often call rivet counters, but that's not, that we just don't, because it's a more polite word than the actual word that most of us use when we're not live broadcasting. For those people who say there's one right way to do it, it's my way, that's the only right way. Then you find people that the exact opposite, who will argue there's no right or wrong way to do anything. And neither of those extremes are right. There are right ways to do things. It's just that there's a lot of them. There's a lot of different right ways to do stuff. There are some wrong ways to do it too. You know, I mean, if you've glued your finger to your eyelid, as Lionel Strang likes to say, then you might have probably started out from the wrong foot forward. But there's sure a lot of right ways.
Rainbow Bell gives you 1,000 thumbs up, Miles.
Yeah,
And when Adrian Gatson said, when you have men doing something, you always get egos.
that's right. That's right.
I always remembered that, and I think this is true for all of us in our jobs and in our social life. Ralph Renzetti says, me and Andy, I would disagree just because I can.
I'm glad you do most of the time.
Free country. You can do whatever.
Absolutely.
That's it. That's it. That's it. It's just a matter of what we, and I think as we get older, we don't have time for this. I know myself, when I run into people like that, I tend to, I'm on the side of 65, so, I ain't got time. My time is limited right now, so, no. I ain't got time for the drama. That's the way you want to do it, fine. Go right ahead. Rock and roll, baby. Knock yourself out.
Do your thing. Yeah.
Do your thing. I'll see you when I see you, And that's just the way it is. I just hope that Andy and I and the rest of us here at Model Railroading Live here have worked it out where we were able to assist or influence or just help out if anybody was willing to look at to do something with the modulars or systems and in any shape, form. Like I said, disclaimer, we're not looking to tell you how to do it, why to do it, where to do it, when to do it. We're just trying to tell you have fun with it. Basically, at the end of the day, you just, Sparky said it earlier in his comments to Ray. He says sometimes he goes out into the shed and he forgets about time and you just don't have, Ray Bell said the same thing in his last video vlog. He goes downstairs into the, where the layout room is and he forgets about time and his wife, yells down to him and he put a clock in, the train layout room and, you forget it. You just forget. I know I recently was telling Andy before this that the height of my table's a little higher and my wife went out and bought a 4-foot folding table for me, and now I sit in here. And the other day I was in here building a new building for the layout, and I started at 9 o'clock, and 2:30 in the morning my wife came out and said, "Are you coming to bed, or are you staying up all night?" And I didn't even realize the time, And it gets away from you, and it always amazes me. And you gentlemen can chime in. If you got something on your mind, I don't care how big it is, how small it is, or what's something that's going on in your life, and you come and you start working on your layout, whether it's track cleaning, fixing or testing. Isn't it always amazing how you come to the solution to the problem? you leave and you go, I know what I got to do in this situation.
Yeah, when you can get your mind off from it for a moment. And I find that in the trade room with work problems that I know a lot of us have somewhat stressful jobs, and honestly, this it's just a stressful life. Life is a stressful place this day and age, and model railroading. I got back in about 5 years ago or that something like that, and I had tried a few other hobbies and kind of outlets prior to that. It's the only thing I found so far that I totally forget about it after 10 minutes in the trade room. I can spend hours in there, and only after I leave and go sit down back on the bed again do I start stressing out about that thing I've got tomorrow again. It's the that is the biggest testimony to success that this is the right hobby for me that I think I could ever proclaim.
Sparky says it well. We get lost in our imaginations, our dreams, our childhoods, and time has no meaning. Sparky, is that really you writing that, or is that your wife writing
That's right. That's a Hallmark card pinned to the board beside his monitor.
it? I'm going to take
Well,
that and put it.
if you get too lost, I have a number of a psychologist that you can call.
Yes, I understand. I understand. It is. It's a good time. It's a good time had by all. And well, an hour has flown by, and we have had such a great time. I think we have. This is the conclusion of this four-part series of Bigger is Not Necessarily Better. Uh, we do want to thank you guys for joining in when watching this series with us. We also want to take time to thank Bill Baronic, aka the Track Planner, Joe Fugate, editor and publisher of Model Railroad Hobbyist Magazine, and owner, director, entrepreneur of Trainmaster TV, and to Miles Hale for being in on the two last series and giving his wisdom and input into this series. And also, I want to thank Andy for who originally the conversation started that sparked it, and and stuff like that. So really a great job, Andy, for getting this off the ground, and to uh, John, who's not with us tonight, but has been really a stalwart in getting this production up and running and overcoming a lot of the obstacles that have interfered in the past with this, but kept going through all that, internet stuff and crazy stuff. So it was a team effort, very much appreciated to all you guys out there in the community. Thank you for tuning in. And yes, Miles.
And don't forget the series on the science.
Yes, that was, Miles and I will be doing a series on building the Kentile floor signs, to which we will show you the onus when it started and how it erupted and how we built this sign. And Miles was so intrigued with this sign that he went and built one for himself, and we'll show that, what he did on his layout, and stuff like that. And that's going to be coming up. We're working out the logistics on that. But in the meantime, tomorrow is Thursday. That would be the 20th of March. I believe John will be back. Please notice or look on the bulletin board for if there will be a cancellation. I don't think there will be, but if you will look. But Johnny's Train Talk Show will be on tomorrow night. That's where you guys can mosey on down to the general store where John's keeping company with everybody, and you can pull up a chair, pull soda pop out of the cooler there, pull up a chair, and talk about model railroading. Yeah, you can pull up the Diet Dr. Pepper. Sit down and talk model railroading. And if you have something, bring your bag and you want to talk about it, you can do the same thing here. We have a link that will get you into the channel. All you need is a webcam and a good internet connection, and you can get into into this. And if you have a model railroad question, a model railroad problem, or just want to talk about model railroading, Johnny's Train Talk Show is the place to be. That will be at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's on tomorrow night, Thursday. Next Wednesday, yours truly will be back with the Who's Big Bill Talking To, and we'll be talking to William A. That's the name of his channel, William A. We got Fred E., and then we got William A. And we'll be talking with William A. next week. and in a couple of weeks we'll have M Mark on his channel, another Canadian. I was going to say fellow Canadian, like I'm a Canadian. I'm rambling now, and also we're going to be doing the signage thing, and that's coming up in the next couple of. So with that said, we want to thank you all for watching us, because if you're not watching us, we're just talking to dead air. And we want to appreciate and thank you guys out in the community for staying with us and being part of this. Hey, until next time, take care, God bless, and we'll see you guys on the radio.